Good day to you. I had a interesting experience this week. I rolled into the church and I was in the parking lot and there was this cool dude, a skater dude. I don't know why. I think all skater dudes are cool. You don't see people like me on skateboards, but he was drinking this Monster drink, and he had a sleeve of tattoos, and he had this little beanie cap on, and he had these skinny jeans on, and he's doing all kinds of tricks on his skateboard. You youngins might say that he was, shredding on his board. He kind of has some gnarly moves. I don't know if you say that or not, but well, I'm sitting in my truck. I'm trying to, he comes up to my truck, and I say, uh-oh, now I got to try to be cool. And I can't be cool, but I was trying to be cool. And he said, "Hey, I hope you don't mind me skating in your parking lot. I'm getting my oil changed over there." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, whatever, cool, awesome, yeah, peace out, bro." Really relating with him. Figuring, I don't know why he'd think a guy in a camel truck sitting in a church parking lot is cool, but I'm gonna have a moment of honesty, and you're gonna think a lot less of me than you do right now, even. But I actually had a thought pop into my mind. I literally, you never know what is really coming over a person. But I did think about bringing my 1970s scamp board out. Right now you might be wondering why. I don't know why. I don't have a clue why that popped into my head. I'm just being brutally honest. I thought, man, I'll bring this old girl out to this guy, and he'll really appreciate that. I mean, one of his feet would have probably fit on this board. Want to know why I didn't? Well, I didn't bring that out because the truth is, it's not because he wouldn't have thought that my skateboard is cool, because it is from the 70s, and that is kind of cool. It's because I stink at anything skateboard. And if I'm being brutally honest, and this is going to really, again, this is not a story that makes me look positive, but it's okay. I was bad at skateboarding in the 70s. I was bad in the 80s, I was bad in the 90s, and I think, quite honestly, I'm probably worse in the 2000s at skateboarding. I can want to be cool, I can want to fit in as much as I want to, but the truth is, my coolness with skateboarding stops at my scamp. And you got to admit, that is kind of cool. Hey, there is something that I love about Jesus that I want to share with you that makes him amazing. The skateboarders might say makes him sick, rad, whatever, cool. And it's this. And I want this to be the foundation that is saturated our entire message today. I want this to be something that wraps itself around everything that we share together today. This is what makes Jesus so amazing. It's this: you don't have to be anything but you to have Jesus want you. You don't have to be anything but you to have Jesus want you. And the other thing that makes Jesus so amazing is there's absolutely nothing in your life, nothing about you, that you have to change to make Jesus love you. His love is unconditional. Jesus comes to all who seek him. And I started thinking about how powerful that truth is. And if we can't wrap ourselves around that this morning, today, this afternoon, whenever you watch this, then really you're not going to connect with the message today, and you're not going to connect with Jesus today. Our miracle is found in John chapter 4, verses 43 through 54. We are talking about this idea of considering Jesus, and we're looking at 7 different miracles that John recorded in his gospel, and we're on miracle 2 today. And so if you want to turn in your Bibles to John chapter 4, I want to read that miracle to you, starting in verse 43. Jesus is spending some time with some weird people, actually, people that his Jewish counterparts would not have him spending time with, and that is some Samaritans. And while he's serving and walking around, he gets approached by this official, and he performs a miracle, and I want to read that. After the 2 days, he left Galilee. Now, Jesus himself had pointed out that a prophet has no honor in his own home country. When he arrived in Galilee, the Galileans welcomed him. They had seen all that he had done in Jerusalem at the Passover festival, for they also had been there. Once more, he visited Cana in Galilee, where he turned water into wine. And there was a certain royal official whose son lay sick at Capernaum. Capernaum was about 25 miles away, probably a day and a half, 2 days journey. When this man heard that Jesus had arrived in Galilee from Judea, he went to him and begged him to come and heal his son, who was close to death. Jesus' response kind of interesting here. He says, "Unless you people see signs and wonders," Jesus told him, "you will never believe." The royal official said, "Sir, come down before my child dies." "Go," Jesus replied, "your son will live." The man took Jesus at his word and departed. When he was still on his way, his servant met him with the news that the boy was living. When he inquired of the time when his son got better, they said to him, "Yesterday at 1 p.m, the fever left him." Then the father realized that this was the exact time at which Jesus had said to him, "Your son will live." So he and his whole household believed. This was the second sign Jesus performed after coming from Judea to Galilee. You know, this is an incredible miracle, and it says a lot about Jesus. It reveals some things that I think are worth considering in this wrestling match that you and I have with Jesus, and considering who he is and what he means to our lives. And so I'm going to pass along a few things today. Here's the first. Jesus makes a clear distinction between those who have a prove it to me attitude and those who have a hunger for God's movement in their life. And I want to ask you to really consider this question. What is your attitude toward God? What kind of spirit, what kind of attitude do you have toward God? Is it this cross your arms, you know, God, prove yourself to me? Most of the world kind of has that attitude. It's where they're standing still, and God, if he's going to show them anything, is going to need to come to them. Or do you have this attitude that says, man, I want to know. This open-hearted, open-handed attitude toward God. There is a major difference between prove it to me, and sure, I'm interested, I want to know. When this man first approached Jesus, I was thinking, man, I think Jesus wanted to know what camp this man was standing in. Jesus makes this statement that basically says, most people want proof before they will follow. He wants to know, I think, of you and I today. Jesus wants to know, are you any different? Are you looking for proof? Are you looking for God to prove himself to you? Or are you hungry to understand? In Matthew 16:4, Jesus actually said these words. He said, "A wicked and perverse generation looks for a sign, but none will be given it except the sign of Jonah." Then he left them and he went away. You know, there's a lot of importance in how we approach God, how we approach Jesus, what our spirit is, what our attitude is. And I have talked with many skeptics over the years who have had 100 questions, and have falsely claimed that if they just had some answers, that they would consider Jesus. Now, before we get too critical in this this dialogue, I want us to recognize that we're all that person at times in our life. We all have those 100 questions, right? And we all have claimed, man, if I could just have some answers in this situation, my faith would be better. I would trust God better. I would follow Jesus better. And so as I've learned about these 100 questions and how people, we just want to know answers to our questions. I've learned that you can answer those 100 questions, and you know what would change? For a skeptical person, nothing would change. And the reason why nothing would change is because the lack of answers has nothing to do with producing a skeptical heart. A skeptical heart doesn't come from lack of understanding. And really, quite honestly, the answers to those 100 questions are helpless for fixing a skeptical heart. See, a skeptical heart comes from hurt and fear and disappointment, and that's really understandable because we've all felt that. We've all been there, right? We've all been hurt. We've all felt disappointment. We've all, had fear take over at times and challenge our faith. It's interesting because as I was thinking about this, thinking about that person with a skeptical heart, asking those 100 questions, they're really not looking for answers. They are looking for justification for their pain. They're looking for why they hurt. So you can bust your back answering those 100 questions, and you're going to find 100 more. At the end of all your effort, you're really going to be face to face with someone who wants understanding for what they don't know, rather than obedience to what they do know. Now, I want to say that again. When we try to help somebody understand Jesus, understand God, and they come with a critical or a skeptical heart, we sometimes think that we can answer all their questions, and we really kill ourselves trying to answer those questions. And at the end, you're really just face to face with the same person that you started with. A person who really wants understanding for what they don't know, but they really are interested in obedience to what they do know. And the reason why I repeated that is because I want you to get it. Because I want you to understand what I say next. Obedience is the only thing that brings understanding. Knowledge cannot bring understanding of God. Obedience does. Jesus wanted to know where this guy stood with his attitude when he was approaching Jesus, and what kind of attitude he was approaching God with. And I find that most times when I'm critical of heart, we tend to sit back and we want God to perform for us like he's some kind of circus monkey. We tend to believe that we're the most important, that we're the center of the universe. And you know what? We're owed some explanation here. God, I'm willing to sit down with you and reason with you, right? You need to know that how you approach Jesus will determine your closeness to Jesus. And I'm challenging you out of the gate here to really check your spirit, check your heart. Let me move on. This miracle reveals something kind of powerful about Jesus that I'm not so sure people really grab a hold of or believe. And here it is. Jesus wants to heal you. Jesus wants to heal you. Jesus is full of mercy. He's full of grace, and he wants to give it away. And I'm not so sure that people believe that about Jesus. Do you? Do you believe that Jesus wants to give to you, wants to bless you, wants to heal you, wants to give you mercy? What view of Jesus and God are you basing your pursuit of Jesus on? What view of God, what is the core, what is the foundational basis for your walk with God and your pursuit of God? It's really important, and I want to illustrate the importance of that in a weird way, I guess. I want to do it with a standard of measurement. We all know that a foot is 12 inches. Everyone knows that. It's universal, and there's going to be no argument about that, I'm sure. So let's say you're trying to build your house, right? And you told everybody, hey, you want your foundational wall, you want the foundation of your house to have a 3-foot foundation on it. And so, right, 3 times 12 is 36. 36, divided by 3, it's 3 foot. And so you know that the standard that you're using for measurement for building your house is 12 inches or 1 foot. What if the guy building your house came in and he thought that actually that a standard foot was actually 10 inches instead of 12 inches? And then you had another guy that was helping him, and he comes in and he believes that a foot equals 16 inches. Well, here's the first thing. It's going to be a bear for all those guys to communicate while they're building the foundation of your house, and it'll be impossible for them to build anything that's worth anything and worthwhile. Your house is going to be an absolute mess, and you're going to be lucky if it stands up. Here's my point spiritually. I want you to check your foundational beliefs about Jesus. Is your measurement of him right? Do you have the right view of Jesus at the beginning, at the core of your relationship? Is your foundation right? Are your foundational beliefs right? If not, if your foundation is off, if your core beliefs of Jesus don't match the truth of the Bible, then it will make communication with Jesus nearly impossible. Also, whatever you build spiritually in your life will never be solid or sustainable. It will always be a train wreck. I find that most people know Jesus, know that he existed, even like Jesus. But I also find that most people have a foundational view of Jesus that is wacky. And when that happens, we tend to wonder how we can know that Jesus is so right, but feel so wrong and not really fit into our life. They wonder how Jesus can be so for them, and they know he's for them, yet be so hard to stay connected to. So here's some foundational questions that I want to ask you, and they're foundational check questions, if you will, to check where you're at. Do you think that Jesus is for you or against you? Do you believe that Jesus is for you or against you? Don't answer it quickly. I want you to really think about that. Let me go a little deeper into that question. Do you see God as a God who wants to punish you or bless you? Do you look at God as someone who's out to get you, out to tell you all the wrong that you've done, out to make you stop doing a bunch of things? Do you believe that when you sin, that Jesus or God, that they hate you? Or do you believe that they love you even broken? Do you believe that in the midst of your worst sin, that God or Jesus has this scowl on their face, that they're looking down on you and just incredibly disappointed? Or do you see the love that is in Jesus, even in the midst of your darkest hour? See, what you believe at the core, what you believe in your foundation about Jesus matters. Your foundational beliefs that you hold about Jesus will affect your whole spiritual house, and they may even be a reason for some of the cracks in your spiritual relationship with God. you need to ask the question, do you have some foundational issues with God? This miracle that's recorded here in John tells some very clear things about Jesus. It, to me, really shows that Jesus is full of mercy and compassion and that he wants to heal. Now, I don't know if you see that in this miracle, but I do. I see it in how Jesus treats this guy. I want you to notice that Jesus didn't interview this man. Isn't that interesting? Jesus didn't run him through a number of tests and say, have you been living a godly life? Have you been doing good things? Have you been living right? Jesus didn't question this guy and make sure that he was perfect and that he was a follower before he healed his son. Listen, your whole world will change if you start believing that Jesus is for you and not against you, that he really, really wants you. Let me move on I have a couple more points and they'll be short, but another thing, if you take Jesus at his word, he will bring blessing to you. And here's the reason why. Because Jesus always blesses faith, trust, and desire. Now, I have said this many times before, but I think it's worth repeating. I believe that our greatest sin is not what we smoke, drink, watch, or do. I believe our greatest sin is not believing what God says about us. I think that is the greatest sin. If you and I refuse to take Jesus at his word, then we will never experience the promises that he has for us, let alone the power that he has for us in our lives. Jesus will always fall short for those who are short on faith. Hebrews 11:6 says that it is impossible to please God without faith. Now, I know that it's difficult and it's hard sometimes to live in this world physically and trust Jesus and trust what he's doing. But that's what it takes to please God, is trust and faith. And you need to reach out in faith and believe Jesus for who he is. I love how this man took Jesus at his word when there was so much writing on it. Think about that. This man, his son was dying. His son's life was on the line. And he turns around and he takes Jesus at his word. And he's just, okay, Jesus, I trust you. I believe you. Thank you. I'm out. I'm rolling home. I want you to think about a simple question this week. And here it is. Will you take Jesus at his word? Will you trust him for what he says about you? That's a big question. I want you to really think about it. Here's the last thing that this miracle reveals, I think. It's pretty simple. It's basic, but it's really, really powerful. And my biggest problem with sharing some of this stuff is I just get this feeling that people will just dismiss it because they've heard it so many times. But I know there's going to be somebody that God's going to grab onto through this truth, and you're not going to dismiss it, and you need to not dismiss it. And here it is. The presence of Jesus changes everything. That's it. The presence of Jesus changes everything. Do you think this family ever forgot their encounter with Jesus and what he did for them? I don't think they did. In fact, I know they didn't. I was thinking about this family and this man and his life and how different it was and how different it would have been if Jesus wasn't in it. I started thinking about not only was his son given life, but his entire household's eternal destination was altered because Jesus was in it. See, the presence of Jesus changes everything. You know, in my life, Jesus has changed everything. And see, if there's anybody that grew up with me, you know what I'm saying is true because you grew up with me and you know how I was. And when Jesus came into my life, everything changed. Everything changed. Before Jesus, my greatest mystery was, how do I fit God into my life? After Jesus, I have a different mystery. Now, my greatest mystery is, how could anyone ever live without Jesus in their life? I will die serving Jesus. And I will die feeling that the greatest mystery is the rejection of Jesus. That is the greatest confusion in my life now, currently. And it will remain that until I die. This confusion and this mystery of how in the world could anyone make it in this world, make it in this life without Jesus? I want you to know that Jesus is for you, not against you, that He loves you, that He wants to do good and amazing things in your life. He has mercy and grace and healing for you. And I really hope that you'll consider Jesus a little deeper this week. Have a good day.